Welcome to the Magdalene Voices, giving voice to those silenced for centuries through sacred conversations with beautiful, illuminating souls. I'm your host, spiritual business coach, mentor, catalyst, and facilitator, Maria Estela. I serve spiritual entrepreneurs, Magdalene's Rising, and radiant beings just like you with the expansion and growth of yourself and your business, aligning you with your deep inner truth, bringing to life that which you're here to birth, and supporting you in expressing your soul's divine purpose through your being and your doing in this lifetime. If you haven't already, I highly encourage you to join my newsletter to stay connected and updated. You can do so on my website, mariaestela.com, where you can also find previous episodes and their show notes. And if you have ever wondered about your Magdalene connection and calling, and whether you are a Magdalene, I invite you to download the free Magdalene Blueprint I've created for you. Go to mariaestela.com/AYM to get it. So, I am seriously filled with the deepest joy and satisfaction over what I will be sharing with you today. I am diving deep into one of the tools probably most responsible for my significant shift from a fear-based mindset into one of love, A Course in Miracles. I honestly don't know where I'd be without it, and I am eternally grateful for it having found its way into my life. In this episode, you'll hear me share what A Course in Miracles is, how to work with it, how I came to it, my journey, and the most common pitfalls I see, as well as my struggles with it, spiritual bypassing, and its surrounding community. In the show notes, you'll find a link to a post I wrote called A Beginner's Guide to A Course in Miracles, outlining what it is, how it came to be, where and when to start, as well as where to get your own copy if that calls you. There is also a link to my 21-day journey with A Course in Miracles, where you every day are invited with my guidance to dive deeper into some of my many favorite pieces of ancient wisdom from this beautiful text. Picking just 21 was seriously hard because the book is filled with so much truth and resonating wisdom. I pray this episode will serve you. Hello, Radiant One, and a very big and a very warm welcome to this episode of the Magdalene Voices. In this episode, I am going to be diving into one of the tools that completely transformed my life. And it's probably not right to say that it transformed my life, because it was me. It was my willingness, my commitment, my decision to do this work that led me to it, and that in the end really was the key. And I think that is a very crucial piece to begin with, is that whether or not this tool is for you, or whether or not it's something else, ultimately within your heart, what is right for you and what is true for you will be brought forth, and you will be guided or given the tools to your own awakening and your own enlightenment and your own expansion and growth in this world. And it may be this tool, it may be another tool. You ultimately know what is right for you. It's interesting. I was fine until I started recording this, but as I began talking about it, I can really sense the depth of what this did for me and to me and for me. I feel very, I feel emotional right now, because it has made such an impact in my life. It has supported me in completely transforming my life from one based in fear to one based in love. And for that, I am eternally grateful. So without further ado, you probably read it, but the tool that I'm talking about is A Course in Miracles. It is brought, this is my latest version, and I think this is actually the first one that I got. When I first started A Course in Miracles, I got the quote unquote the cheapest version because I was like, what is this? I didn't, I'd only heard about it and I didn't really know what it was. But so I chose to get the cheapest version that I could get. And once I got it, it was really, it was in my home for a long while before I even started diving into it. Before we dive into what A Course in Miracles is, I thought I would share my own personal journey with A Course in Miracles in the hopes that it may inspire you, because I've found that many go through some of the similar themes that I have gone through in terms of journeying with the Course. And so I thought that that's where I would begin. And my journey, and I've actually gone back to try and see if I could find it. My journey with A Course in Miracles began through, like so many others, began through Marianne Williamson. And I'm pretty sure that she was on Oprah at some time in the beginning of the 2000s, 2007, 8-ish, but I can't find it. So it may just be my imagination going wild, or it may simply be a divinely led, guided journey that led me to it. But I came to A Course in Miracles through Marianne Williamson and her magnificent book, A Return to Love. A book that literally saved my life when I was going through a very, very rough and dark night of my soul. I would take this was the time of iPods, and I had the A Course, or not A Course in Miracles, but I had A Return to Love as an audiobook, and having realized that there was something other than me, there was something other than the human eye that was on my bathroom floor crying her eyes out almost every night, I realized that there was another part of me, and I wanted to strengthen that part of me, even though I had no idea how or what that was. I just knew that there was something else that wasn't on the floor crying her eyes out. And so I did two things. I every night when I went to bed, I plugged in a Return to Love, and so Marianne would really read me to bed or to sleep. And it would just run even though I was asleep. I wanted my subconscious, unconscious, whatever it was at that time, I didn't really know. I wanted that to hear these words so that they could expand in my life. And the second thing I did was I set an alarm on my phone to go off 5 times a day. And when the alarm went off, it was a gentle alarm. I said, I choose love. And then I went about my day. Those were the two things that I did for a while. And then finally I was ready, and I got A Course in Miracles. And when I got it, I struggled for the longest time getting through just a page, because it was like Russian. The terminology within the course was just so foreign to me. It was like learning a different language. I could not understand a single word, and I would fall asleep, and I would, be irritated, and I would just be like, I would give up over and over again. I would give up. And still something kept pulling me back toward, even though I started and stopped and started and stopped so many times, I kept returning to it for some reason. And ultimately I believe that, as I said in the beginning, when we're called towards a tool or towards something, it will keep calling us until we're ready. And once you're ready, then you will begin to understand. And of course, today, A Course in Miracles is like reading just any other book, but this is almost 10 years, if not more, later. So I have done the work. It wasn't until it was I would say, I think I had the book for about 2 or 3 years before I, for some reason, started committed myself to doing it. And I want to say that this was in the summer, sometime in the summer or late September of 2012, that I began really diving into the course. And for me, that began through doing the lessons in the workbook, because the textbook, that's the first part of the book, I couldn't understand a word of what they were saying, or what he was saying, really, Jesus. But and also for me, again, the terminology coming from a Denmark, where I was born and raised, is quote unquote Christian, but we're not religious in any sense. I call us la Christians because we go to church on Christmas Eve, maybe New Year's Eve, and then, for all the celebrations, the weddings and the baptisms and so forth, the confirmations and so forth, but not really anything else. It's not like it's part of us. And I find that so interesting that Denmark, and I think many other countries, like, really have this deep sense of longing and loss and having removed ourselves from our source, but it's so ingrained within, every part of our daily life. I think we are the only industrialized country in the world to have a state religion, so that if you're born in Denmark, you're basically you're quote unquote a Christian until you decide to leave the church, so to speak, which you can do, and many do. However, in terms of that, for me, the word God, the word Jesus, was very, very closely connected with cults and sects, and the word God to me was deeply scary, because it, like, if I mentioned the word God, that would mean that I was Pentecostal or Jehovah's Witnesses, or like really like I was joining a cult. And of course today I understand that the word God is just, source, and it is a word that is, for me, is love. Really, it's not a white, it's not a white man with a long beard coming to judge us. It is the source from which we all expand. So it's really not a human being, or even it's a source. It's an energy, and it's what we are. It's what we have always been, and what we will return to, and what we still are, even in human form. We are the expressions of love and of God in this lifetime. So again, coming back, it was 2012 that I started. I want to say sometime around September, and the reason that I know this is because I know that it takes there's 365 lessons in A Course in Miracles, and it takes you through the year. And I think I'm pretty sure that I finished A Course in Miracles the first time in September of 2013. But coming back to 2012, I began my journey with A Course in Miracles, and I started doing the workbook lessons, 1 per day. That's what is recommended, and that's what I did. About 3 months later, I was going on one of the biggest adventures of my life. I was going to California for 3 weeks. Not for 3 weeks, sorry, for 3 months. I was fulfilling a lifelong dream of trying to live in California, one that still exists, but I was going to see if that was the right fit for me. And in beginning of December 2012, I packed myself and my 2 dogs, Alba and Stella, and jumped on a plane. And 3 weeks before leaving for the US, I didn't know where I was supposed to stay. All I knew was that I knew that I was supposed to be near in or near San Diego, in the Southern California, but I didn't know where. And so I sent out a call to my circle and my friends in my circle, and I said, if anyone know of any place near San Diego, I'd love to know about it. And one of my former clients came back and said, I think my brother owns a house in the wine country outside of San Diego. And me being me, I was like, there's no wine country in Southern California. You're talking about the northern part, and I'm not going to the northern part. I want to be in the south, and blah, blah, blah. Me being me, basically, I was like, sure, but you can go ahead and ask. And she came back. Luckily, she came back, and she said, yes, he does have a house. He has a house in a town called Temecula, and you're welcome to rent it. And I was like, hallelujah. So that was where I was going. So I went to Temecula, and I stayed there. And after a few weeks, every Monday I would drive. I would do it was like a 2.5, 3 hour drive up to see Marianne Williamson. She was doing these talks, Monday night talks at the Sabin Theater. I would drive up there, and then on the way back, I would buy the CD. This says something about the time that this was that. I would buy the CD. So many things have changed over just in 6 years. But I would buy the CDs, and I would put it in the car, and so on the drive back, I would listen to her talk once again. So I would get it twice in one night. And I had done that, I think, for about 2 weeks. When one night I was on my computer, I was on Facebook, and I was about to shut down my computer. And as I was doing that, in the news ticker, I saw something that caught my eye, and it said notes from a workshop from Course in Miracles in Temecula. And I was like, what? And I didn't know that there was anything in Temecula that had to do with A Course in Miracles. And again, this was about 3 months into my real beginning of my study of A Course in Miracles. And I followed that and realized that at some point or another, I must have liked or I don't know, but it led me to a Facebook page where it had Foundation for Inner Peace, I think it was called. And I clicked the link and was led to a website, and realized that the teaching institution that Helen Schuckman, who is the scribe for A Course in Miracles, together with Kenneth Wapnick, who was her assistant, or who helped her together, he didn't help her write A Course in Miracles. He helped her edit it. William Thetford were the one who was really supporting her in downloading all of this information. However, the teaching institution that had been set up to support the expansion of the teachings of A Course in Miracles was based in Temecula, and it was literally 15 minutes from my house. And I knew at that moment that could not have been by chance. That was kind of like, it was a pivotal moment for me, because it was so mind-blowing. Here I was 3 weeks before I was going to the US. I had no idea where I was going, and then I was truly being led. And so the next morning I was outside the store, and I was like, my nose was pressed up against the glass, and I was looking in, and they opened, and I walked in. And so for the 3 months that I was in the US, every week I was fortunate enough to be part of a study group, and they still do these. I was fortunate enough to be part of a study group for A Course in Miracles, and it was a really, really deep dive into A Course in Miracles. So that was really my offset for it, and so I finished. I think the first time I finished A Course in Miracles was, like I said, in September of 2013, and after a couple of days, I was like, I don't feel like I'm done, and so I started again, and I did A Course in Miracles repeatedly for, I think I did it about 3 or 4 times, which then amounts to 3 or 4 years on a daily basis. It was simply a non-negotiable part of my daily life, because I wanted really to dissolve the blocks hindering my sight. And that is what A Course in Miracles is for. It is not to teach you about love. It is about teaching you how to dissolve the blocks that you are experiencing, that is hindering your sight, so that you can, hindering your sight so you don't see who you are in truth and what you are in truth. And that is what A Course in Miracles does and did for me. Then at some point, as I was going through the workbook, like I said, it's 365 lessons. It's one for each day of a year. I say of a year because it's not about starting on January 1st. You can start whenever you receive the book. You can just start whenever. There's no certain date that you need to start on, or so there's 365 lessons. And at some point or another, I want to say that my perception or my vision had shifted enough into being able to read A Course in Miracles. And I remember when I started reading the textbook and understanding it and being like, this makes sense. That was so mind-blowing, really, to me. And the way that I like to describe it is that if you're learning a new language, let's say you want to learn a second or a third or a fourth language, well, once you start reading, you don't understand a word of what it says because it's all mumbo jumbo. And as you begin to learn the words and the phrases and how it's put together and so forth, you're able to understand. So, and I see that's for me, that's the same thing. That's what happened with A Course in Miracles. It was it went from being I was able to read it, I was able to read it, but I wasn't able to understand it or translate it in any way, shape, or form. And that's really what happened over the course of those years. So I want to dive into what is A Course in Miracles. Like I said, A Course in Miracles is this blue book, and it consists of 3 parts. There is the textbook, there is the workbook, and then there is the teacher's manual. And one of the biggest questions, or the first questions I always get, is where do I start? Like when I do A Course in Miracles, where do I start? And that is really when your journey with A Course in Miracles begin. Because it's really about tuning in and listening to your own heart. Like, where are you being called to? I know people who have been called to start with the textbook. I know people who have been starting with the teacher's manual, and then I know people who, like me, have started with the workbook. And I want to say that I think that most people start with the workbook, but really it's about tuning in and listening within, because that is ultimately what A Course in Miracles to me teaches you, is that it teaches you to listen within, to listen to your own internal teacher and your own guide. So that's it. And then, as I said, when do I start? Well, there are many that think that because there's 365 lessons that you have to start on January 1st. You don't have to. You can start, like I said, I started in September, and I've started, I don't think I've ever started on January 1st. Actually, I don't even think that I've ever started on a Monday. It doesn't have to be. It's like when you're ready, pick it up and then take the first lesson. And as you begin, really anything that is ready for you to be healed and dissolved will be brought up. And the ultimate key to A Course in Miracles is always returning to love and staying in love, which can be very difficult when you're quote unquote feeling forced to look at things that don't work in your life, or things that are not as you want them to be. But ultimately, you will be given the tools and the tools that you need in order to change those things. Now, one of the things that is very important for me is that A Course in Miracles is a deeply personal course, which, is really funny because I think it's sold in more than 4 or 5 million copies. It's really spread throughout the world. And that's what important to notice is there's no marketing for A Course in Miracles. Those who those who sell the foundation for A Course in Miracles, those who quote unquote sell A Course in Miracles don't ever promote it. You won't find Facebook ads or Google. It's really spread through the heart, really, essentially. And I will link in the show notes to this episode. I will link to both a beginner's guide that I've created, free beginner's guide that you can go ahead and read about A Course in Miracles, where some of the things in this episode is summed up, and also where you will find the links to where you can buy A Course in Miracles. Now, as I said, it's a deeply personal course, but there are many teachers of A Course in Miracles. I, for a while, thought that I was going to be one of the people teaching A Course in Miracles, but I realized that I'm not. What I really am is like A Course in Miracles has been such a deep part of my personal journey, and it is through that I have come to the place where I'm at now, but I'm not. It's the principles of A Course in Miracles is ingrained in everything that I do and that I am. It's ingrained in everything that I teach because it's really all about love. However, as I said, it's a deeply personal course, which is. I know that it can sound crazy when I say it, because how can it be deeply personal when it's distributed in 5 million copies? Well, every lesson is a personal lesson, and every lesson is a lesson that you get to look at through your lens, and it's your experiences, your challenges, your issues, your obstacles, all of that can be brought up, and those can be healed with the tools of A Course in Miracles, and one of the biggest, I guess, pitfalls I've seen in A Course in Miracles is, or with students of A Course in Miracles, is the abandonment, really, of their own discernment, the abandonment of their own intuition, the abandonment of their own inner guide or sense of what is right and what is wrong. And that honestly scares me, because it appears that somehow A Course in Miracles for some is turning into a religion. A Course in Miracles is very clear. It is not a religion. You can study A Course in Miracles whether you are Muslim, Buddhist, Hindu, Christian, whatever your faith is. You can study A Course in Miracles because there's no dogma and there's no doctrine. What it does, it supports you, like I said, in dissolving the blocks hindering your sight towards seeing yourself as love. So one of the biggest pitfall, like I said, is that for some students of A Course, and many students, it turns into a following of a certain teacher. And what I always like to say, or one of my, again, core principles is elevate the teachings and not the teacher. It is not about whoever is teaching, it's about the teachings. And so that that putting someone on a pedestal, that guruization of someone, and I want to say there's nothing wrong with the word guru, because it means teacher in Indian, and but it's when you abandon your own discernment, your own inner teachings, your own intuition, your own discernment, really, that it goes off on a tangent. That is not valuable or not appropriate, I would say. So that's one of the biggest pitfalls. Is A Course in Miracles is not a religion. It is it's a tool. It's a teaching, and you are ultimately the one who knows, and that's what it, for me at least, that's what it teaches. It is teaching you go within, to trust, to really discern and know what is right for you and what is not right for you. So that is, in terms of it being a deeply personal course, that's what I mean. There's also, and I didn't know whether or not I was going to bring this up, but there are different sets of A Course in Miracles on the market, because of the way there was, I think in the beginning of the 2000s, there were some issues with copyright, and that was lost, or that was fought and lost. So A Course in Miracles, the original texts are not copyrighted, and for me that fits perfectly in with the whole purpose of A Course in Miracles, because these teachings to me are supposed to be in the hands of as many as possible. Those who feel called are called, and should have them readily available. Now, one of the other pitfalls that I see with A Course in Miracles, because it teaches only love is real, is spiritual bypassing. And that actually goes, I guess, in hand in hand with the abandonment of discernment. And not only that, but it's also, I think, a part of our awakening journey is, as we begin there comes a time in your awakening journey when you realize that the human form that you have is not all there is. And once we realize that there is something else, we would much rather go, quote unquote, there than be here. Why would we stay here on this planet and suffer through this bodily form with all of its challenges and fears and all that, when we know that there is a quote unquote other place, when we know that we are spiritual beings having a human experience? Then there comes this, I see that there is this period of time where you would rather be somewhere else. And so it's easy to latch onto that and say, oh, I am not off this world. So all of what's going on with the world, the social injustices, the inequality, the discrimination, the all of that, I've got nothing to do with that because I am a spiritual being, which is utter bullshit. It is spiritual bypassing at its worst. And I say this through experience because I have been there. I know what that's like. I understand. What I also know is that it is through us that this world will change. And that is that's actually a quote from A Course in Miracles. Through you, this world will change. And through you means through you, aka your spirit in human form is going to be the vessel, the channel through which this world will change. And that does not happen by sitting still. It doesn't happen by ignoring, by suppressing, bypassing. It happens through your active healing, through your active being, and through your active doing in this world. And to begin with, that looks like getting yourself in check. That looks like dissolving the fears, you're healing, expanding love in your life, and so forth. And once you have that solid core and that strength, then you're ready to step out into the world and begin the real work as well. So for me, A Course in Miracles is such a powerful tool in that, but it is not to be used as another quote unquote Bible that will just have you close your eyes towards this world. I understand that there will be times in your journey, because I know that there was for me, where you want to close your eyes, where you don't want to be in the world. But I also know that that the love necessary for you to rise, lives within you, it breathes within you, and it is within you at this moment, whether you are happy, satisfied, fulfilled, and joy-filled, or experiencing fear and depression and angst and so forth. Yeah. So I just want to make sure that I have gone through everything that I wanted to in terms of A Course in Miracles. I want to say that if you have a question about A Course in Miracles or this episode, you can go ahead and leave me a comment either on my website or underneath the video here. And if you're listening to this via podcast, you can go, like I said, to my website. The show notes will be, or the link to the show notes will be in the episode notes for this course. That is what I had for you in today's episode about A Course in Miracles. Know that there are many teachers, but just one song, and you are part of it. I love you. Take care. That is what I had for you in today's episode of the Magdalene Voices. For all of the deeds and the details, find the show notes on my website, mariastella.com. Know that I would love to hear how it resonated with you and what you got from it. So tag me on Instagram or leave me a comment on either my website or YouTube. Finally, if it served you, please take a moment to share it with a friend or in social media. God bless.